All right, welcome back to Coalition M, everybody. I'm your host, Carson Lopez, and you're listening to KFHS Radio. I keep forgetting to say that, and so the studio manager is getting on me now about it, which is kind of funny. But I'm glad he is.
Listens to your show?
Probably. I mean, he's never told me directly, you need to say it. But, like, I could understand if he did, because Kadre would get on me all the time for not saying it. So I totally get it. He's a good manager for doing that. Anyway, so welcome back to Coalition M. My name's Carson Lopez. I already said that, blah, blah, blah. I have with me my roommate, Caroline. She's been on the show once.
Just once, yeah.
Just once before. She was with us in the Apple Pie Apologist. So, yeah, we're roommates. She's the RA, actually, in our building. Yeah. She's also super gay. Yep. It seems that I only know gay people. And I'm okay with that.
Like
yeah, gay people who like to talk. I kind of like that. I think it's a coincidence, but also kind of not, because I think you kind of attract people who are like you in those ways.
Well, we are very similar.
We We even sometimes dress alike, which is, I don't know what to think about that.
That people don't. Well, I mean, honestly, I feel like that's a great outfit. Like, you too. I'm like,
exactly. Yeah, that's great. It's better than me like, ugh, what is that?
And then of course, hey, this plaid shirt would look better than that plaid shirt.
Yeah, exactly. So. Plaid. Oh my God. Yeah, exactly. So tonight, I have titled this. I think it's funny. You know the phrase pillow talk, but it's like a sexual thing. I'm not really sure what it is. I'd never heard of pillow talk until the Zayn Malik song came out. I didn't listen to the song, but like I didn't know what that meant. And someone was like, "Well, it's about sex." I'm like, "Oh, of course it is." So I named this episode. What did I name it? Couch Talk with the Roommate.
That's cool.
Yeah, because this is the stuff that you and I just talk about all the time.
Yeah, I'll be cooking fish and asparagus.
Yeah,
we'll
fish.
Like,
salmon.
Salmon
and asparagus. And or we'll just be like watching TV and Jaren will be over and we'll just be talking about stuff. And so because this is basically just what our conversations are like all the time.
Although I mean we do talk about cooler stuff. Usually my relationship issues.
Right, yeah, exactly.
They're pretty current.
And mine sometimes.
Weekly.
Yeah. So also I feel like I already told you this, but I'll just tell people who are listening. So last week my movie intro motion pictures class was volunteered to take a survey about how we feel about our roommates, and like so they're trying to, it wasn't like an experiment, it was just how do you feel about your roommate and then trying to figure out why you feel that way.
They're probably trying to get stats of how how can they make potluck better.
Exactly.
Although we weren't potluck.
We weren't,
and I was like, I want somebody that's okay with gay people, and I was like, well, she is, so well, yeah, she's gotta be great.
Yeah. They didn't ask. The survey did not ask about, and it wasn't the school; it was a student.
Oh.
Okay. And she did not want to know if you chose the roommate. She just asked, how do you feel about them? And basically, like, do you guys share the same religion? Are you guys the same political spectrum?
I feel like that should have been something you should have asked.
Yeah, I feel like it was probably a limitation for sure. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and so I felt like I was probably the only one in the room who was like checking off. Yeah, absolutely agree. We're totally fine. And then because normally you don't hear about that, and I feel like I don't talk about my relationship with you as a good thing just because I don't need to. It's only the bad stuff people want to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, no one's going to say, yeah, my roommate's awesome.
Because that's expected, right? Yeah.
Right. Those are the things that don't stand out to you, especially if it works so fluidly.
Right.
You just don't think
Which is
about
unfortunate.
It. Yeah. Have you ever had a bad roommate?
Oh, well, do my brothers count?
No.
No.
I guess in college. In college is what
the only other time I had a roommate was a couple of years ago as a freshman.
When I met you?
Yeah.
Guys,
and
I've been around far too long.
She's like 70.
25.
Yeah, she's.
And so I was an RA when Carson was a freshman.
That's right.
In my building.
And we weren't best friends or anything. We got along pretty well in the beginning, and then, we kind of got tired of each other. But I felt like she fit me pretty well, because when she wasn't in the room, I was. When I wasn't in the room, she was.
So
it was fine.
Your time schedules worked well.
Yeah, it was fine.
Avoided each other.
Yeah, other than the fact that her cell phone would go off at the exact same time every morning at like 5 a.m. because her father would call her. That was really annoying. But I couldn't really do anything about that. I didn't feel like it was that big of a problem, just because, like, what am I going to tell her dad to stop calling, like, whatever. And I got enough sleep, so I wasn't bothered.
You live in an environment where, like, you live in an open room with 2 beds.
Right, yeah. So it's a little hard. Gosh, but so yeah,
I've had a bad roommate. before.
Really? Yeah, you've told me about wouldn't take out the trash was just kind of unpleasant in general.
We don't share toilet paper.
Yeah.
I'm like, nope.
That's fine. She was like, buy your own toilet paper. I was like, okay, whatever.
That was my only exception. Like, you have to buy your own toilet paper.
Yeah, that's fine, and I do. I have lots of it. So the only reason I bring that up is because I want everybody to know that you and I are in fact friends.
Oh, yeah.
We are in fact good friends.
Yeah.
So I think probably religion is one of the only things you and I don't have in common. I mean, we have a lot. I mean, you know, we're not the same person. That's not what I mean.
Right.
But it's one of the big
because I was
things
on
we don't have.
that thing that you were talking about with the roommate stuff, where it said, "Do you agree on religion?" You're
like,
no.
Yeah, that was like the only thing. I was like, no, not at all. When it was asking, you know, on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being not at all, 10 being 100% totally.
0%.
Yeah, I was like, no, not at all. But that was pretty much the only one. So why don't you tell everybody, refresh people's memories, who you are and what you believe in, and whatever else you want to mention about that.
Sure. So I'm Caroline Ray. I guess religion, I grew up into religion type things, as far as I went to a Presbyterian church. I went to a Christian summer camp, so many of them growing up, like Dry Gulch, Shepherd's Fold, New Life Ranch. Ever since I was a wee kid, I'm pretty sure it was probably like my parents needed a break from me, and they're like, well, we send kids to camp, and that's what I will be doing.
Right.
And, you know, it's a safe environment, so what can go wrong? So I grew up going to summer camps, and then my family worked within the church as either like Sunday school teachers, actually probably just that. And I eventually went back to the summer camps that I was at, and I worked for them. I ended up being a high ropes course instructor, so part of the time you're having fun, but the other part you're doing Jesus stuff. And I just remember
that's fun to some people though.
Yeah, some people are into it. I think what's really interesting about a high ropes course is just how, you know, you do a trust fall, and I feel like there's no way to trust fall in such a way that there's only one rule, because depending, like, say, since it was a spiritual camp, trust fall, you're like, well, how is this like with Jesus? And so you're like, oh, you must trust him. But if you go there with work, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, how is this a trust fall for work? And you're like, oh, it's team building. So it's almost, to me, it's like, it's a fake. You know, there's you can fall however you want to and make it up. And I always thought that was so interesting. And I almost actually hated working for a summer camp. Not that this really has anything to do with religion, but I just remember it ruined it for me, because all of a sudden that magic was gone.
Really?
I saw
Just because you could apply it to more than one thing other than Jesus?
No. It was more like, now I was an instructor, I was an advisor, I would lead talks and stuff like that, and I felt like I was manipulating a lot of things.
What do you mean?
For kids. So, as our high ropes course instructor at a summer camp, as far as Christian camp, I guess, we would do trust falls and you would climb. I mean, they were fun activities, but then you would always have your let's sit down and talk, and, you know, what can we learn from this? And I felt like a lot of the time I was manipulating the Bible into the activity. Maybe that's okay, maybe it's not. But I just remember whenever I was a student receiving that, I really believed it. Like, I felt it. I was like, yeah, I totally get it. But as the person facilitating that, I was like, I'm making this up. I mean, I'm using the Bible, so I'm not, like, making up words, but I'm like, I don't know. I guess the mystery behind it was gone from me. From whenever I was the kid taking it all in, I thought, man, you people, you know, you adults, you know what you're saying. Like, this must be really what it says, and this is what it has to mean. Right. That's not true. That's not at all. And it's like, wow, I'm not forcing you to believe this, but this is all the information I'm giving you. And so, sure, you can count that as a way of leadership, but I don't think I liked that position necessarily.
Okay.
I know that's just me. Other religious things, at the college that I went to before this was Kelly Community College. I did fellowship with Christian athletes, and I was vice president and president of that. And I don't know, I guess to me it was just it was an environmental thing, because I'm not a partier. I wasn't a big drinker, didn't really curse. Like, I was quote unquote maybe what you'd call a goody two shoe. And so it was nice to have a dynamic where everybody else kind of fit in that that world, and that's what I grew up in. And then in high school, as part of Fellowship of Christian Athletes as a programmer. So I just dove deep into this. But then I don't know, something about the Bible, and I think it had to do with the pastor at one of the churches I went to, where he looked at the Bible more as a history book than he did as a storybook, and that changed it for me. Because I think so many
This was while you were in college?
High school.
Okay.
I think it was in high school, and I didn't notice that I liked this until I got another pastor. I was like, why are you making this so childish? And so I do remember, his name was Tom. He's old, retired, but he would do a lot of things. Like, he would talk about biblical times and Hebrews and locations, and he had actually traveled to those locations, taken pictures. So there was a like, I could see the effort that he put in, and I loved it. And then I think the new guy came in, and like, he would talk about maybe Noah's Ark and the difference between this new guy and the old guy is the old guy would say, you know, these are the statistics, this is how many people died. And the new guy was like, you know, all is well. Love is great. And it was that, just, I don't know, I just hated how they were afraid to do the details. And so I moved off, went to college, and I think the only person I knew was my roommate. He was also a Christian. And so she took me to a Lutheran church, which I'm Presbyterian, and he also like knew Latin and Hebrew and Greek, and we dove into that, and I could ask him any question in the world, and I felt like he confidently not only knew the answer, but taught me how to discover it myself. And that was pretty big. This is a fun fact. Turned out I started exploring a lot more religions by liking a girl. I really liked her. I didn't know I was gay, but she was trying to study Jehovah's Witness, and so I studied it for a year to get closer to her. That's how much effort I will put in for you.
That's cute.
I will change
That's
my
really
religion. But while I was there, I enjoyed, because you'd hear a lot of Jehovah's Witness, you know, why don't they have windows? What's behind their closed doors? And it's like, well, it's more efficient not to have windows. But I enjoyed seeing different perspectives, and then all of a sudden, through going to Presbyterian and Lutheran and Jehovah's Witness, I went to to go to Baptists and Catholics. So I started researching, and something that I really didn't like, whenever I was doing the Jehovah's Witness my year with them, it was weird because I felt like I was hiding, because I couldn't tell my parents, because as soon as they found out, they're like, oh, that's a cult. Like, you can't. And, like, they sat me down. I mean, it's almost as though if they found out I was gay, they're going to set me down and be like, you can't do that. You're, you know, bad idea. But with Jehovah's Witness, I just remember my family saying, you know, if you go on that other side, they're not good. They're cult leaders. And I was really upset by that. I was like, you've never even been. Like, you have not ventured. I think I just ignored them. I didn't even try to argue with them, because there's some people you just can't argue with, and that's definitely my family. But then when I was studying with Jehovah's Witness, it came to the time at the end of the year, I think maybe baptisms or something like that, and they asked me, well, do you want to be a Jehovah's Witness? And I said, no, I don't. I just really enjoy learning. You know, I want to explore more religions and different perspectives. And they shot me down. They're like, well, if you either, you know, and they had a good reason, lukewarm, either you are or you aren't. So they said, if you do not want to be a Jehovah's Witness, you cannot come back. And so I didn't. And so I kind of felt like I couldn't freely explore religion back home, or even like in the religion that I wanted to explore. And I was definitely sad about it. And that was kind of the last time I've been to church. I started to kind of get mundane, and I haven't really been back. Not surely because of that experience, but I think I enjoy Bible study far more than Sunday school. I think Sunday school is kind of like that quick fix. Saturday night was wild, so we got to go to church, ask for forgiveness. And, you know, there's a lot of churches where their Sundays are a lot more meaningful, but for me personally, I always like Bible study because I enjoy, you know, if we're learning from the Bible and that's what it is, then that's what I want to do. And I understand how the preacher can interpret it stuff. And I think we've had a conversation a little bit how, like, with Jehovah's Witnesses, you have a microphone and you can actually talk to the group and to the pastor or whoever is leading it and have a conversation. But at churches, you listen to the pastor, you don't ask any questions. And I didn't like that. And I'm sure, like, maybe you could raise your hand. I think it would shock them and be like, Yes, they're in the back by, the old lady who's falling asleep with candy.
Yeah.
But I don't think they know what to do with it. And I think you told a story how maybe somebody was asking them, like, who should I vote for? And then they told them.
Well, the way that my mom's church does it anyway, you like put your questions on a slip and then ask it.
Okay.
Put it in there so that they can address like all of them
that's cool.
in like a sermon
Some
later.
sort of feedback.
Yeah, well, kind of.
Yeah.
But
But I definitely go to a old church. Like half the people are dying. But that to me is definitely church. Like they have Encounter here, which is kind of upbeat music and stuff like that. I'm like, I do not associate church with that. Like I can't get in that whole spiritual mindset. Like if it's not boring in hymns, I can't. This isn't church for me.
Yeah.
So I have to separate the two for sure. But I enjoy the Bible. I definitely, if it hasn't come across yet, like I do believe in Christ. I do believe he was real and whatnot. I have other opinions for sure, different questions and my own struggles. But I don't know. I definitely have a private walk, so to speak. Like I don't want to pose my views down other people's throats, which is, I wouldn't say is why I wouldn't be a good Jehovah's Witness. But I couldn't go and knock on people's doors and convince them to come join, this group. Like to me, I'm like, there's steps to it. And I'm the step where you've kind of joined, you're kind of into it, but you have more questions about details and statistics and stuff like that. Like that's where I lay. I'm like, if you're already interested or if you have questions and you want a safe area to talk about it, shoot, talk to me. Like that's where I'm at. I would not be good at trying to convince people. It's almost like I wouldn't say they have to already be convinced, but they have to be willing to ask questions. So I don't know. Like I just wouldn't be good at knocking doors.
Sure.
I'd be like, come to me.
Right. Okay. So you mentioned that your parents were involved in the church since before you were born, or?
My parents personally weren't.
Okay.
But my aunt was. Like my aunt and my cousins.
Oh,
and
I
my
thought you said they
grandparents.
were Sunday school teachers.
My fam, like I guess when I say family, I should have specified I'm close to my extended family, like cousins and aunts and uncles and grandparents. Like we all live together.
Okay.
My parents themselves, they're those typical like, yeah, we go to church on Sundays and on Easter.
Okay.
And that's it. I don't think I've ever seen them read the Bible, but I know they're very heavy in the Bible. I mean, you give up some topics. I mean, gosh, just to be gay, for example, and all of a sudden they are experts. Really? So in the Bible, yeah.
But they don't read it?
I've never seen them read it.
Okay.
So maybe it's a private thing. I don't know. But
maybe.
They're I would pick them as Christians. They identify as that, or they consider themselves that. They go to church. But. Okay.
So it wasn't really would you say that they kind of, so they didn't really install that value in you? Did you kind of find that on your own of being a Christian? Did you find interest in that by yourself?
No, I would say it was, gosh, I grew up in it. So like I can remember, like, you just go to church on Sundays. Like if I wasn't dressed and ready, I would have to go to church in my PJs, and nobody wants to do that as a 7-year-old. Maybe you do, I don't know. I think they just had this hard rule because they grew up Christians, or they grew up Catholic, or whatever it is that their background denomination was. It was just, that was all I knew, and I think that's all they knew as well.
Okay.
That's the best way I could probably describe it. That's how we all grew up. I guess you can consider it forced, because they took me to church and I was there and I was like, all right, I guess, I can't drive. I'm 9. I guess I'll go. But I think it's just something that it's all I ever knew, so I didn't ever fight against it. Okay. And then because I was in it, I dove more into it. I mean, I don't know if you ever heard people say they've had spiritual highs. I definitely have experienced something similar to that. So I think I found a path that I found interest in, and I'm passionate about it. Because there's things about the Bible I get very angry and upset about. Okay. And I feel like if I'm getting angry and upset about it, then it must mean something to me. Because if it didn't mean anything to me, then why would I care?
For sure. Yeah. Okay, so what kept you interested in it then? If it wasn't necessarily, if like you're used to going, but yeah, what actually made you pay attention and kept you coming back?
That was a great question. Because I definitely, to a point, I mean, of course, I would get a car and I would choose to go to church. it could have been routine, but then I think I also wanted to discover it more. Like, to me, I would read a chapter and I would look up numbers, not numbers like the book, but I would say, all right, in the scripture, they mention the number 3 like 16 times. Why? I think it was asking questions. I think that's what kept me in it, is I kept asking questions. And I don't know if there was a satisfaction of like me self-discovering things or me kind of making up like, oh, this connection here, it says it 12 times, 12 the apostles, 12 nations. And so I like to look at it more in that aspect. So I think it's just, I had questions and I wanted to bounce it off of ideas. So I would go to a pastor and it's almost like I wanted to stump them or I wanted to impress them. It was one or two or both. So I don't know why. Maybe just that was some sort of satisfactory that I had that I wanted to do. But I think that's what it is. Like, I wanted to see if I can discover something that they don't talk about and then have them talk about it. Even if they don't know, like, I think there's a scripture about a donkey and a ox. And so normally most people would read that scripture and think donkey and an ox. But whenever I was looking more into it, there's some things that stood out to me and I connected it. And it was when I was going to a Lutheran church and I asked the pastor, I was like, hey, you know, you say we can ask any question we want. And we did. And I asked him, you know, what do you think about this donkey and the ox? Like, are these metaphors? Are they real animals? And I would say most people would read the scripture as oh yeah, real animals. And, you know, the donkey eats the grass and the ox eats the grain, you know, wouldn't think anything about it. And then I think the pastor that I was working with, who knew the Hebrew and the Greek, looked into it and he did his research on it, and he came back to me the next Sunday, and the fact that he put in all this effort made a big difference to me. And he actually broke it down between like, oh, well, this meant slaves, and like the ring inside of the bull meant a ring on like a certain slave, meant this is what your job and your duty was as a slave, as part of like, you were married. I think there's like 13 ways you can be married, or you could have like 13 different ways you could have wives or something.
Okay.
And so he broke this down in such a philosophical way that I was like intrigued to where it's more than an ox. It's the ring means, or the ox means you're a slave, and the ring and the nose means you are this type of slave, and that's your job. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to read in between the lines of things that I've never heard.
Okay. So when you say, so you believe that Jesus Christ was a real person, do you believe that he died and then came back to life?
Yeah, I do. I mean,
Okay.
I know that sounds very hesitant, because I think the Bible itself was kind of weird.
What do you mean?
I think it's strange how, this book, and it talks about all these miracles, and my question is, why did they stop?
What do you mean? Why did they stop? Why did they stop writing?
Well, I mean, they stopped writing, but then it's also, you know, you hear they broke the bread and they fed all these people.
Okay.
Or they turned water into wine. And then I think there's probably some more miracles that happen after maybe Jesus wasn't the one performing them. And I just think it's interesting, like, why did all these things happen, you know, before 400 BC? And these aren't the correct dates, whatnot, but just to give this general idea, like, why aren't these things happening in 2018? These wild things.
Okay.
Like, why did they have
you.
to stop writing? Like, why stop writing the Bible at all?
Okay.
But do I believe it? Yeah, I think it was necessary. I think if you're going to, I would say yes to that question.
Okay. So you don't think that Jesus did all those miracles?
No, I do.
Okay.
I do think so.
But you said maybe someone else was doing them. What were you talking about?
Oh, I'm meaning, like, whenever you read the Bible, they would say a blind man rubbed dirt on his eyes and then he could see again.
Okay.
So that wasn't Jesus who did it, or maybe he did. I don't remember the story by verbatim. But there'd be certain things where somebody would do something, or they wrestled with God, and who's that, Elijah? Or Job or somebody, and they hurt his hip. You know, it'd be,
Elijah.
Yeah, so there'd be certain things that would happen in the Bible that were considered miracles, or things that were, I don't know if
okay, so like
would
just
admit
other stories.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
what you're referencing? Okay.
And so yeah.
Okay, cool. So do you believe in the God of the Bible then? That he's real and alive and I mean what?
Yes.
Okay.
Gosh, It's wild though because, I mean, as a Christian, I'm definitely not afraid to admit that I can overthink that, and then all of a sudden try to convince myself, what if it's not? You know, like there's a God. Like, all right, so God made the world. What made God? Can anything make God? Is there anything beyond God, or like how did he get here? Like stuff. If I think too much into it, it'll drive me nuts because I'm like, gosh, I have no answer.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say like whenever I think about it, if I had to go down to my roots, like Holy Ghost, Father, God, Jesus, yeah.
Okay. So you believe in the Trinity then?
Yes, yeah. That would be the perfect word for it, actually, yes.
Okay. Yeah. I believe that's from
Father, Son, and Holy
Catholicism.
Ghost?
Yeah, I believe the Trinity is, or maybe it's not specifically Catholicism. I remember it was a big thing in Catholic school, but I don't know if they like hold a patent on the Trinity or not.
I don't know.
Maybe they do. I don't know.
Gosh. Have you ever seen or witnessed or experienced anybody speaking in tongues?
No.
It's insane.
I mean, I guess I could look it up probably on YouTube if I wanted to. If I wanted to see a show.
I don't know why it made me think of this. I think it's just the Holy Spirit. I was going to this camp. I think it's called Shepherd's Fold. And I remember I don't know if they do it anymore. Probably not. But in the 90s, they're like, yeah, we're all going to speak in tongues, y'all. And there's like 100 kids. And I'm like, okay. And so all these people are quote unquote speaking in tongues. Maybe they were or not.
What?
And I remember, it was a weird sense of feeling. And it was bizarre. And I remember I was like trying to speak in the tongue. I was like dabbling. I was like, you know what?
This was at a camp for children?
Yeah. I was
interesting.
Probably 9 or 10.
You were a child at the time.
I was a child. Yeah.
Oh,
and so they just had this giant room, probably ranging from like first graders all the way to high schoolers, all speaking in tongues. I don't know if it was like domination as far as like Baptist or any of that. I don't know if there's a specific kind. But I remember being in that room and like seeing all these people experience this speaking in tongues, and then I'm attempting to, and I'm like, it's not clicking for me.
Oh my!
Not quite getting it. Like,
wow. That sounds terrifying.
Yeah, I remember feeling weird.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It was a weird, interesting thing.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what made me think of that. It dawned on me like, yeah, I've been in that environment.
I feel like I know what denomination you're referring to who does that a lot, and I can't think of.
I can't remember.
I can't think of the name.
Baptist is the only one that stands out to me.
I don't think so. No.
Actually, when I think of Baptist, and I don't know if there's a word for it, but I think of snakes.
The snake charmers?
Yeah. Well, I don't know snake charmers, but I think there's a piece in Matthew at the very end, and some Bibles not even there, but where if you believe in God enough, if a venomous snake bites you, then it won't kill you. It won't kill you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So.
Nothing against Baptists.
I don't think it's Baptists. I think there's a denomination and they do it all the time. Yeah. And they'll play with snakes and then get upset when they die.
Documentaries of it. I have never experienced that personally. I have gone to a Baptist camp as well. Again, I like to immerse myself in the situation.
Yeah. Sure. Why not? So what do you try to think. So my last question was, do you believe in the God of the Bible?
Yes.
You do. Okay. And you believe he's in control of everything, or sometimes, or not at all?
I believe he curated everything. And the idea of like, does he know everybody's move before they move? You know, is he planning them? I don't know. I feel like I have free range of that. Whether that's true or not, I'm not too concerned about it. I kind of do my own stuff.
Okay, so you don't know if he knows everything necessarily that's going to happen before it happens.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I think about that. Like, I feel like he could, but I don't know if he actually controls it. It's like a weird, like, he knows, but he's not planning it, but he knows everything.
So he does know what's going to happen? Like, not necessarily that he's like moving it around, but that he knows what's going to happen.
Like, I feel like he knows what's going to happen, but he doesn't know because he's making it happen. Does that make sense?
Okay, so he's not causing these things, but he knows what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oversees it all.
Right. So it'd be kind of like if I know what's going on in the room over there, even though I'm not in there doing anything.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of okay. So is he good?
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Is he evil? Is everything?
Is he good or is he evil?
I guess he doesn't have to be one or the either. But do you think he's evil?
No.
No. Just okay.
I mean, I feel like he does what is necessary.
Okay.
And that, I suppose, can be
Does what he needs to do.
interpreted in, good or evil. One might say, like, Noah's Ark. Or when the flood came down, is that evil because it killed a lot of people?
Uh-huh.
Or is it good because it started a fresh start? I guess it depends who you are. Did you drown? If you didn't, I guess you didn't think it was so bad. Other people might think differently.
Yeah.
So I think I feel like as a parent, a lot of times, for me, I guess I could associate God as a parent or as a dad. As a parent or somebody who's taking care of a kid, there's sometimes there's things that you do that they don't like, or things that you need to control that they might see as evil, or like you won't let them go party and they're 14 and they're like, you're awful, I hate you.
Mm-hmm.
But you're like, no, I kind of know you shouldn't be doing that.
And then you drown them.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I did what's best for my kids.
Did what is best. Yeah. I feel
Don't
like,
tell me how to parent my kid.
That's right.
No, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think he does what is necessary and teaches lessons through a lot of things. I don't think he is purely good, because if you get in that concept, he is good. Gosh, I feel like there's so many arguments against it it would prove against that, and I don't feel like you have to prove that he is good. Like, why? I don't. Does that make sense? I don't know where it got deemed where God is good.
In the Bible.
In the Bible, that like he is good and only good.
Yes.
Oh.
All good, all knowing.
Mm-hmm.
I maybe all good isn't the word that he uses. I guess it depends on the Bible. Maybe benevolent is a word used a lot.
I don't know. Like, I feel like we put on this hierarchy that he never. Well, I guess I wouldn't consider him to make any mistakes, but I can see him doing rash things.
Okay. You think God makes mistakes?
I wouldn't say make mistakes, but I wouldn't say that he doesn't hurt anybody.
Okay, so he may hurt a lot of people, but it's not necessarily a mistake.
Correct.
Okay. So you don't feel like you could say that Noah's Ark was objectively wrong to do to people?
Yeah, I don't. No, I never since reading the Noah's Ark that I was like, wow, that was a really shitty thing to do. Like, you shouldn't have not done that. I think he had good reason to.
Okay. What were those reasons?
If I had read the story, I would have better reasons. As far as what I remember, I want to say the land was, like, people were, I want to say, and you can definitely correct me if I'm wrong.
I would. I don't think I'd be qualified to correct you.
I don't know. Yeah, if I had the story up, I think the premise of it, the reason why God did it is because there's a lot of evil out there, and so
basically
he was going to wipe it clean,
right?
Fresh start.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think that's wrong? No.
Okay, so
do I think that's fair? Not up to me.
Not up to you?
Yeah.
Okay. So all the other times he does that in the Bible too, where he just kind of either commands,
harsh,
either commands someone to kill someone else or just does it himself. You think there's a good reason?
Yeah, because I feel like
those things.
If those people, if he didn't have the flood, you know, it's hard to think like what could have life been? Could have been awful, like even worse. And I don't know, and I feel like and I think it's explained in the Bible where maybe God, he sees the past, present, and future all at the same time, given the fact that he has all this power. I don't know. It's such a weird concept to think about, all this interchangeable time happening at the same time, but then no time going by at all. But I think comes to a point where, especially biblical, you killed people who weren't good. I don't think we do that as much now. But you remove the problem.
Why don't we do those things now?
We're soft.
We're soft.
I don't know. I mean, don't they do it in Texas where they still like death penalty?
Yeah,
Like,
in lots of states there's a death penalty.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, why don't we just handle things like we used to in the biblical times? Why don't we just...
Yeah.
Right? I mean, why doesn't God just kill some of us?
There was a cool... I can't remember. It was definitely somewhere in Rome where if you accuse somebody of doing something, one, I think there was a certain amount of witnesses you had to have. But then if that person was found not guilty, you got their punishment. So that meant if you're going to accuse and point fingers, just know if you're wrong and you lied, you're going to get that punishment. You can't just point and hope that this person you didn't like, gets axed for something they actually didn't do. And I think it kept people more fair. And then...
Do you think we should implement that now? So that, like, if... I could see that working now where it's like, if a man is accused of raping a woman,
I was actually saying,
and then all of these people are witnesses, but then he gets off, and then they get punished.
Right. Yeah, kind of like if there's a girl out for revenge and they accuse somebody of raping her, like that.
Yeah, or if, he really did it, and then the jury just doesn't find him guilty, and is like, no, I just don't think so.
I don't know. I feel like a lot of the hangings and stuff that we do, like that drastic, because I remember my dad would say, he's kind of a harsh man as well. He's like, we should still hang people. I'm like, why? He's like, because if you saw it, you wouldn't do anything. And I was like, fair? I guess that's true. I wouldn't steal a candy bar if I got hung for it.
Does he think that there was no crime back when they would hang people because everyone would see it and then not ever do anything bad?
I think he's assuming there was less crime.
Interesting. Okay.
And again, like, unless you didn't hang people, you would have to document that. And, like, I don't have the statistics.
I mean, they still will give the death penalty.
Yeah.
And you can watch it.
Yeah,
I guess. If you have special clearance. I'm sure people videotape it.
Yeah, I don't know if we should do that now. Because I feel like we hung people for the wrong reasons. For either their skin color or if they were witches and women. So I think we have come to terms with more logical reasons, but I don't think, because we are people judging other people, I don't think, the crime always fits, what am I thinking? The justice fits the crime, or the penalty fits the crime.
Punishment?
Yeah. I think there's definitely bias, and some people would get screwed over for sure. So I don't know if there's really any safe haven for going about it. I mean, I think democracy is probably the best. Okay.
You mentioned something earlier about past, present, future all happening at the same time. So do you think there's, like, another universe, out, like a parallel, what's going on right now is actually in the future, but outside of what's going on right now?
I've heard of different dimensions. And I don't know if I fully... It would be like, so I'm gay in this world. It'd almost be as though I'd be straight in another world. Do I think that's real? I don't know.
But I'm just talking about that God can see the past, the present, and the future. So that's all happening at the same time.
Yeah, I think so. That's somebody somewhere described that to me, and that's just kind of stuck. And I think the reason why it's stuck is because I want to think him more empowered. And I feel like, well, I don't have that power. I feel like if anyone's going to have it, he should have it. And that's how it was explained. Maybe it's in the Bible. Maybe somebody just made it up. But it stuck with me. And so I was like, yeah, I could see how if God made this and he can see the past, all of this at the same time at different times.
So you assigned this characteristic to God because it sounded cool.
It made sense. It felt right.
To you.
It sounded cool. To me. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if it says it anywhere. I haven't dug deep
I don't know.
into it.
I have no idea. It might.
And I also call him a he. Isn't that strange? Like, no, I'm sure God doesn't have...
It's called the father.
Yeah.
Not the mother or the sister
that is so
or
strange.
Girlfriend, the father.
I'm sure that's
not weird.
I mean, yeah. I don't know if a God should have a gender. I wouldn't assume so.
You can take it away if you want. I don't see why not.
I mean, there's, again, like the Bible and me, we, sometimes we're good friends, sometimes we're not.
What is the instance in which you are good friends with the Bible? What do you like about it?
I think I like to be able to reference it. I like whenever people are speaking about this topic, and maybe this is why I stayed in it, it's because it was an interest that I had, and I knew the information people would talk about enough to where I could contribute.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I enjoyed that. But again, like I overthink about the Bible a lot, which I don't mind, and I wish more people did.
You overthink about the Bible?
Yeah, so like right then and there when I was like, does it make sense to give a gender to God?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like, what if maybe in biblical times, father, that just meant somebody, because the men were more empowered than the women.
Mm-hmm.
So what if God wasn't actually a gendered person or gendered male, but because they associated males with power, they just gave him that attribute, just like I gave God that capability of, to me, I bet he can see the past, future, present time all at the same time. Maybe somebody's thinking, well, men are pretty powerful, so I guess as far as I'm concerned, he must be a man. And that's what I think. I think because humans wrote the Bible, does that mean flawed people wrote the Bible? Or does that mean that God told people verbatim? I don't know. Wasn't there. So that's what I think about all the time. It's like, well, maybe God doesn't have a gender. That's just what we put, so we understood.
Do you think that God used to really talk to those people?
Like how you and I talk to each other?
I would assume so. I don't know another way to talk to somebody.
I could see it, yeah. Given the phenomenons that happened back then, I wouldn't be
surprised.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have.
So
why that stopped, I don't know.
So when God calls himself the Father,
yes,
and the whatever else he calls himself, why do you think he calls himself the Father and not the parent?
Not the parent?
Yeah. Why does he give himself a gender?
I don't know if he does. I don't know if these
I'm talking about when he speaks to them.
Yeah, when he speaks to them.
When it's in quotes from God, not Jesus. God.
Right.
Which I guess is, we'll get into that more.
Sure.
If you think
and
that's
again,
the same person.
that's sometimes what I have problems with is, what if the people writing it down transferred it in their own opinion? But why did he say father? I guess maybe so they understood. Because if they did understand that a father meant a authority figure, maybe he was saying it so you would understand. Like, this is the, if a woman was in power, I bet he'd be called mother instead of father.
If it was a matriarchal society, you think he would?
Yeah, if things are completely,
I'm the mother.
Yeah, like I could see that happening.
So he was kind of tailoring himself to the times.
Yeah, I would think so.
Do you think Jesus was God? Is God?
I honestly, I've always felt like there were two different people. Like when I always saw that God was almost like the dad, and then Jesus was the son. Like I never saw them as equal.
Okay. So how did Jesus come? Did you think that Jesus was a person, a human being, like 100% person?
No.
Like you and me? No. Okay.
Mm-mm.
What was he then?
Would you describe that as a demigod almost, where if you
Depends
are human and then part God?
Half and half, yes.
Yeah,
that would be a demigod.
Demigod.
That's what that's called.
So I guess that's kind of how I saw it. Like I felt like he had more power than humans.
Okay.
More responsibility, or I don't know, like there's something more supernatural about him than I would consider it just average Joe.
Okay. But he wasn't God.
No.
Okay.
I didn't. At least reading it, I didn't ever feel that. I felt like when Jesus would pray to God, why would you pray to God if you were God?
Right. Okay. I think. Okay. Here's one more question for clarification. Do you think that God? I kind of asked this already. Do you think? And like you gave me an answer, but I just want to make sure that I'm understanding.
Totally.
Do you think that God is it deliberately like putting his hands in things and moving things around? And do you think he's intentional with people? Do you think he wants relationships with people? Do you think he wants to, do you think he's interested in us?
How I see it is I kind of view like he's watching us all the time.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say he's meddling or putting his hand or forcing like, man, I'm going to make you trip today, so I'm going to put this rock right here because I know you're going to step on it. Like, I wouldn't say that. Does he want a relationship with us? I think so. I would say the best way I can describe having a relationship with him is whenever I had that quote unquote spiritual high, and it's hard to describe. I don't know if anybody has ever described it to you, but gosh, it is I suppose like a high feeling. You just feel happy and joyous, and you feel a connection that you can't explain. And like I definitely immersed inside this whenever I was at a camp, and I just was overwhelmed with the community that was with us and how it was all being brought. So it just all felt right, and I was definitely like reading the Bible constantly. And I don't know if I ever felt like he was speaking towards me as much as I felt happy. And that to me was a way that he communicated through my emotions, I guess.
Right. Okay. So the reason I ask is because I want to get to know what you think. If you know, have you ever heard of the deistic God?
I don't think I have. And for the record, for anybody like listening, and they're like, "She's all wrong. She doesn't know anything." This is just my opinion.
Okay.
I don't claim to be am all like Bible knowledge or
Sure. Right. Good disclaimer. So leave her alone.
30 minutes in.
Right. So a deistic God is the perspective that there is a God, but he's not really touching anything.
Okay.
And I believe the opposite of that is theistic, which is like a more intentional. He's involved in the world, and he involved with us, and all that. So I wanted to know which one you think is real.
Oh, okay. I mean,
It sounds like you're more for the theistic, so more involved with people.
I can see how him sending Jesus is a way for him to be more involved in people, if that's like a branch off of him. I feel like God himself. I think the only visual I could think of is when the hand of God wrote onto the wall something. I can't remember what it was. Like, I felt like God was so powerful, and like when Moses went to go see him, he was a bright light. Like, even Moses was blind. Like, you don't ever see God. And maybe God isn't a thing. Like, maybe that what God is light. I don't know. But I feel like his way to connect with people was sending Jesus. But yeah, like I think he wants to be involved, and I think there is a relationship, but I think you have to want it. Like, I don't think he's going to knock on your door and ask for you to do it, unless he's like doing that, working through other people, having a Jehovah's Witness come knock on your door, and that's his way of doing it. Who knows? Maybe.
Okay, so you don't really know?
No, I'm not 100%.
Okay.
But I can see him working through other people. And again, that's just me interpreted. It's kind of like being at the ropes course. You can interpret however it is that you want your ending to be.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the creation story in Genesis. How do you feel about that story? You think that's real?
Yeah, I think it is. I think during the apple pie,
apologist guy.
Yeah, you asked us about, is Earth old or is it new? And then, did he create everything within 7 days? And what did that mean? And I personally did not consider a day to be 24 hours. I considered a day to be like a million of years. And I think that's different between what some people might think. Because some will say, well, I think it is 24 hours because God wanted it to be something that we would understand. So why wouldn't they just say millions of years if they meant it in day? And I say to that, like, at one point, maybe there was only 13 hours in a day. And so those people believed it was only 13 hours a day. So then who's right? The 20 people who are living the 24-hour day or the 13-hour day. But the reason why I think it's millions of years because you have your dinosaurs and you have carbon fiber. Like, you can look in the minerals to see how old things are.
Right.
And I'm
right.
rampaging.
No, you're fine. So you don't think the Earth was created in a few days because you have knowledge that it is not.
Correct.
That's not how that happened.
Yeah, totally.
So when the Bible says day, it means millions of years. So when it says that Noah or Moses lived to be hundreds of years old, what did they mean instead?
I would say...
Was that like thousands, probably?
That's tough to say, because
I guess it'd have to be more if day means millions.
Right, and I don't know. I think that's how you I don't know if that day equals the same. If that's the word they're using, that day equals all other days. To me, you ask, how old was Moses or how old were people or Noah? Before the water fell with the ark, you had this atmosphere of all this water.
Mm-hmm.
And so that meant the ozone layer wasn't corrupted. The sun wasn't as harsh. So, like, people were living longer. For one, they ate better. And two, they didn't have outside things in the atmosphere that were harming them like we do now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do believe they lived longer than, like, our average age, which might be 70 or 75. So I could believe, yeah, they probably lived 120 years. I'm down for that.
More? 900 years?
Oh, 900? I would not say 900 years, what we consider years, are the same years that they considered. Like, it might be shorter. But we would have to, like, for me, we would have to do history to see what did they consider time. What was a year to them?
Okay. Who would you ask?
I think depending on what section of the Bible that was in, it'd be either Greek or Hebrew. I mean, I guess those are the channels I would go through. I would go through what language was it written in.
Okay.
And then who do I know who studied that language and studied that, or who went to seminar. I mean, personally, I would talk to a pastor that I went to church with, like probably the pastor who was Lutheran, because to me, he had great knowledge and great background into this. So that's the path that I would go through with it. I don't know anybody here on campus or who I would go to aside from maybe the internet.
Okay.
We could honestly just Google if we wanted to.
Yeah, that's true. So if I found a doctor in philosophy who is a creationist Christian who said days means day, what would you think? Would you think he's lying or misinterpreting?
I wouldn't agree.
You wouldn't agree?
No.
With what?
Like, I just can't believe that.
That the Bible says that, or that really happened?
That it really happened.
Okay. Okay, so let's back up a little bit.
Sure.
So the story is that God wanted to create people, right? So that we would be with him.
Okay.
Right? Do you agree with that so far?
Yeah. Yes.
So that we could be with him?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it fair to say that he was lonely and he wanted some companionship?
I don't know. Maybe.
Okay.
What
or was he just
God...
bored?
Yeah,
or...
why did he create it?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I can see how the only way that I would relate it, and I don't have children, but the only reason why I would want to be children, one, it wouldn't be because I'm bored. It would be because I want to love somebody.
Okay. Were angels around back then?
I believe so, yes. Well, do you mean back then as far as, like, walking among them?
With God. That's what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So we had people or things that loved him unconditionally, right? At least some of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then he wanted people, but he didn't want robots, right? So he wanted us to be able to choose between him and hell.
Sure.
Or, not, either him or not him, whatever.
Yeah.
So he didn't want robots who just loved him because they have to, right? Okay. Didn't he already have that in the angels?
I don't know.
Because some of them did not choose him, right?
Yeah.
So do you believe in the Lucifer's fall from heaven, and then a bunch of, like, I don't know, what is it, a quarter of the angels went with him?
Yeah, there was some followed suit, like, yeah, I'm gonna follow this guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we had that. So we had someone who wouldn't pick him.
Yeah.
But he wanted us anyway.
Right.
And he can see everything, right, before it happens. Not necessarily, that he makes it happen, but he knows what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so he knows everything that's going to happen, up to this point and past this point, including that he's going to have to wipe out a lot of us.
Sure.
For one reason or another.
Yeah.
And so he does it anyway, right? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
It
'Cause I
does.
feel like what if there's an end goal, like further past our lives, where that all of a sudden makes connection.
Yeah, so there's this hope, right, that it'll make sense eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Does it make sense? So you think it makes sense to do that anyway, to just to not necessarily that to plan this in the first place, but
Sure,
to just
like,
kill
you
these
already
people.
know
It makes
the
sense.
ending, so why even go through all the effort? If you like, why not just go to that ending point? I don't know.
Okay. Does he love us?
Yeah.
Okay. Like a mother loves a daughter or a son?
Yeah.
Okay. Did he love those people that he drowned?
Yeah.
He did.
And the thing that came into my mind is Walking Dead is like Carol had to
Carol had to shoot those kids
she
because
had
they
to
were
kill-
zombies.
Yeah. So it's like,
Yeah.
you know, they're doing bad things, or she was nuts.
Carol?
Not Carol, the psychopath child.
Okay.
'Cause she wasn't a zombie yet,
Sure.
and so she had to make a decision. And I feel like she still loved her,
Sure.
but knew what she had to do. And I can see that in the same way.
Okay. Do you think that if someone had told Carol, or if she somehow knew, I'm going to have a daughter, and I know her daughter, she didn't kill her daughter, but if she knew that that was going to happen, do you think she would have wanted to put herself in that situation in the first place?
Ooh. So the only way that I can relate to this is I think of like my heartbreaks.
Okay.
Of like, if I knew in 2 years whoever I'm dating now we weren't going to be together,
Okay.
you know, is it worth falling in love and going through all that, knowing on this date it would end?
So, Caroline, it's
Yeah.
a little heavier than that because it's murder.
Sure.
So it's death. So it's more like if you knew you were going to date somebody and that you would have to kill them eventually, would you still date them? Would you still even want to meet them?
In that case, no, I don't think I would.
You wouldn't?
No.
Even if you still loved them and they still loved you and it was fine, they just kind of misbehaved and just had to, I don't know, choke them out.
But if I knew, like,
Maybe they were a danger to everybody else, but you had to kill them
Mm-hmm.
eventually.
But yeah, if they told me like, hey, just so you know, in 3 years you have to kill this person, but they're gonna be
Well,
part of your life.
I mean, not necessarily that somebody told you. There's no question in your mind that if you meet and date this person, you're gonna have to smother them in their sleep, or cut them up into little pieces.
Yeah. And this
Maybe
is,
a couple different people.
and this is just a person that I'm being told. Like, I just knew.
You just know.
Regardless, not that they were a love interest.
You can put love in there if that makes it a little harder to decide.
I mean, I think about this in 2 ways.
Okay.
One, initially I'd be like, no, if I'm gonna love him, like, I don't want to have to do that. But then I feel like if I went through with it, what if I got to the point, going through the experiences that I went to, where if I got to that moment, then I was okay with it because I had justified means, and then I didn't feel as bad as I did.
Is that fair to that person that you have to kill?
Is that fair to that person?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how to answer. I don't know.
Because what I'm getting at is, it may seem like there's some justified means when you're the person who's going to end up being okay afterward.
Oh,
But
yeah.
when you are the person who's being killed, you may want to ask their opinion.
So it's like, if I'm the one being killed and I know this
Right.
person knows, all right, this person
Just,
knows.
is it fair to the person that you're going to have to kill if you make this decision for them?
Right, because if I was the one going to get killed, I could have just thought, well, you could have, if you knew you were going to have to do this, you could have just
Not.
met me,
Right.
and then I would have been fine.
Yeah.
I don't know, because what if that person, 3 years from now, like, killed somebody else or did something? Like, I don't know. The thing is I almost feel as though there has to be a justified means. If there's not, then I don't know. Then I guess I would say it's unfair. But I keep thinking, if down the road they did something crucial that would not even require, but would justify the fact of them getting killed, what if they didn't feel like it was wrong for them to get killed? Because I can see some people who do something so bad that they're like, I deserve to be killed.
Sure.
Because
What if?
then is it unfair? So I don't know. I feel like I'm looking for something justifyingly.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is just unknown in the future.
Right. So you hope there's something
Yeah. Oh yeah. I
in
hope,
the future that will make it worth it, but you don't know.
right. Like I feel like if it's not justified, then I would consider it unfair.
Would you still do it though? If you got to have that love for a little bit, but then you saw it all go wrong, and then
I ended up having to kill him?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
You would do it?
Yeah.
Still? You would still kill the person
Yeah.
and go through all that. So that's...
It'd be hard.
Super
sure.
selfish.
Mm-hmm.
Super inconsiderate and selfish. And it's not love at all. And I'll tell you why. Because it's not love when you are throwing that person under the bus so that you can feel good for a few minutes.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm getting at?
Mm-hmm.
So for God to know that all these people would have to suffer at his hand for something they didn't even know about, something they were born into.
Yeah.
For the choices they made, sure.
Mm-hmm. Now, again, I didn't say God was good.
That's, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
If he's not good, who cares who he is?
Sure.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's
Who cares?
fair. Yeah, totally.
Who cares? Right. So when you read these stories in the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
do you think these things really happened? Do you think Noah's Ark really happened?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, and what else am I thinking of? There's another
I know,
disaster that
there's more deaths in the Bible than I think what people see as far as good things. There's tons of them. The Bible's a lot more morbid than I think people realize.
Absolutely. I would definitely agree with that. Let me back up a little bit. I kind of lost my place.
There's towns where he's destroyed.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Kills
towns.
a bunch of people.
There's the Ark. There's definitely places where he's destroyed and.
So you're
people.
you're okay with this God who exists, who's definitely an asshole?
I think he does harsh things, but again, I feel like there has to be a justified reason.
You think there's a justified reason for drowning children?
That I don't know of.
You hope it's there.
Yeah, sure. I hope it's there. Yeah.
So you're okay with just kind of not knowing if it was actually for a reason or not? And being okay with it.
Okay not knowing? I don't feel like I have a choice because I don't think anybody could answer that question.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So the thing is, like, you don't know that there's going to be a justified means to the end. You hope there's going to be in the future, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So if there's not, what then? Then he just killed all these people, and it's because he really didn't like them and wanted to start over. Is that smart? Is that an intuitive or a wise thing to create these people and then be like, this is not going the way I want it to go, so I'm going to kill them?
Smart. I don't know. I also think it's kind of weird to think, how did we really populate from that little family? And all of a sudden there's that. And that's where I feel like in the Bible it's missing parts.
Yeah. So you think the Bible is a history book?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I introduced you to, let's see, what are they called?
Even with, so he made Adam and Eve,
right?
And then they had Cain and Abel, but somewhere in there it says that Cain runs to another village.
Right. Yeah, we talked about with Stephanie about how is there another group?
Right.
Okay.
So I feel like there's a lot of things in the Bible that aren't being taken seriously, or it's being overlooked. I definitely believe that there's information missing 100%.
Okay, so if I showed you reports from geologists and paleontologists that told you if there really was a worldwide flood, we would have known, we would know about it, we would have evidence for it, and we have none.
Okay.
Would you want to look at that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess in my mind, I would say I would definitely believe that science over the story. And
Why?
what I would think of is like, okay, so maybe it wasn't a worldwide flood as much as it was of this certain area that was flooded, and then maybe that's how we got populated because there was other people who survived, and he didn't kill everybody Um, like that I could take in perspective, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Again, like I feel like the Bible has holes.
So you don't go to it for history. You go to a history book. You would rather go to a history book, right? Rather than the Bible. So if someone was to quiz you on, like in school, for something, you know, related to Earth's history, you wouldn't go to the Bible for that.
Yeah, so
right?
like if you're saying like, all right, so maybe you talk about the flood, it happened. Where would I go? Would I go to the Bible to prove that, or would I go to his science to prove whether or not? I would probably go to science.
Okay. Okay. So if did you say that whether or not you thought that it was logical of God to do all this, knowing exactly what would happen?
I said it was logical because I feel like, or hope that there's a justified means to it.
You'd hope there's a justified means to it. Okay.
I want to hope he wouldn't do it just for the sake of doing it.
What if he did, though?
Well, then I guess he did.
Right. Is he worth worshiping, if that's who he is?
I don't know. I guess that's a personal question. And
it definitely is for you.
Yeah, just for me personally?
Yes.
Just to give my true answer, and I don't know if there's a good reason why, I would say yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Even if he's
an asshole?
Disgusting.
Right.
It's worth worshiping that to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
I guess I have felt and seen and experienced more good than I have bad with my walk with him. And again, in my mind, and you know, like what is justified, and then of course, like what if it's not? I guess I can't get in the mindset that it's not, and that's probably what makes that answering that question difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, and this probably sounds like I don't feel for people that like, oh yeah, he murdered children and I don't give a shit. You know, I hope I don't come across that. It sounds like I do.
No, I think you're being super honest.
Oh yeah, no,
more
I'm
honest than
more
most
honest.
people would be answering these questions. I appreciate that.
I can definitely say, like in my mind, I'm like internally thinking like, man, I'm not a good Christian because I'm totally putting him down. And then I'm like, well, why does
you're just going based off of what it says, and I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I think I go back to that whole spiritual high, like the things that you can explain and how you feel and how I grew up. It just makes sense for me to worship him. And I wouldn't claim to pray every day by any means. I wouldn't say my relationship with him is strong. But I can't back out of the fact that I still want to say I believe in him.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not asking you if you still believe in him, if this is true, but do you think he's worth
worshiping? Like, for
anything?
me, it is, because, like, to me, it's like I can't stop myself from doing it. And I don't know why. It's like, is that because I grew up in it and I know nothing different? Is it because there's an actual connection inside me that I can't get rid of?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm sure all that could have influence, and I don't know. But for me personally, even knowing that fact, I don't feel compelled to stop worshiping him.
Okay. Whether, you know, doesn't matter what kind of a person he is.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say because he's God, that's why you'll worship him?
Yeah, I think that would be fair to say, yeah.
Okay. Just a good summarization of what you said. I'm just trying to understand. Okay. Wow.
I think it's really cool to know, like, this is such a safe place. Like, I wonder what the audience think about us. Like, oh my God, they're going to go home and, like, hate each other, but it's not true.
Nah, I don't think so. That is really interesting that you would still fall in line for a leader like that. And I do want to know why. And I'm not asking you why, because I don't expect you to be able to answer that. It always sounds like it
contradicts itself. You know, like,
it
why would you follow somebody?
It sounds barbaric.
I'm like, I don't know, I just do.
Do you not feel like you have any control over yourself? Or over your thoughts or anything?
Do I feel like I control them?
Yourself. Do you feel like you have control over yourself? Is my question. Okay. But you said you don't know if you could stop.
Right.
Why?
I don't know. I mean,
and also, if he's no better
Yeah.
than you or me, if you
yeah.
are nicer to people than this guy is,
Why aren't people worshiping me?
well, I mean,
I don't know. Hello?
not necessarily, but why do we call him God if
Right.
he's just like us, except maybe invisible? That's about it. About the only thing that separates us. In fact, actually, one of the only things that separates us that we would actually be better. Most people on this planet are better than him. So why do we call him God?
I mean, I guess you can call him God for the fact that he created you. That would be an aspect that I would think of. The other ones would be probably the miracles that he shares in there, the lessons that he has. I don't know. I definitely think that's interesting that you asked. You know, do I not have control over my mind? Because I think, like, especially like being gay in the Bible, and you know all about how I feel about that. And I'm like, man, like if I'm so against it, why?
You really don't like that, do you?
I really don't.
That's interesting to me.
Why do I care?
Yeah, I'd
so
like to
much?
note that you hate that it says that, but you don't mind if he kills a bunch of people and
Right.
children. That's interesting. Is it because that has to do with you and the children has nothing to do with you?
It might be.
Okay.
It's very possible.
Yeah.
I mean, if I saw,
I mean, but what does it matter? I mean, if he's
Yeah.
gonna do something to you because he just doesn't like you, what's the difference if it's because you're gay or not?
what do you mean?
So if he is capable of just killing you, just
Yeah.
breaking your spine, just because he doesn't like who you are,
Mm-hmm.
why does it matter to you if it's because you're gay or because you're
Yeah.
not doing what he wants you to do?
I think it might be because I feel like in the gay aspects, like I feel like I can't change it, and I think that makes me panic.
Would you try to change it if you could? Have you?
No, I wouldn't change it because I love girls. I wouldn't.
Okay.
It's more like I wish they would change for me. And
You wish what would change for you?
like I think what I always search for in the Bible is some way for being gay to be okay. Like I wanted to transform so that I can fit into it and not worry about it. But
So
because it is like I identify as that, and all of a sudden now I'm kind of, I don't know if victim would be the right word, but it's against me, and that makes me panic. And I definitely think like, you know, if I don't like that, why am I still following? Like, why am I so hung strong on this? Like, stop believing in it if I don't, you know, if I'm okay with myself. And I don't know, and I think that's what I have trouble with, because I feel like, so I'm gay, but I am okay, and I feel like God loves me, and I don't actually think that like I would go to hell because I'm gay. Like I don't believe that.
You don't think so?
No, I don't.
Why not?
I don't believe it because as far as being gay, and I don't know how, I feel like if I had a wife, I'm gonna love my wife. I'm going to take care of her. I'm going to be, you know, super sweet, hold her hand, like all these good things. I'm going to love her. And I don't know what,
Even if you have to kill her.
even if I have to kill her in her sleep.
Dear God. Don't let her listen to this. Whoever she ends up being.
Yeah, no kidding. And like, don't screw up. Don't leave me. Oh God, that sounded awful. So to me, like, I don't feel like being gay is a bad thing, because I feel like being gay just means you are loving somebody who's the same sex. And why would that be wrong?
What, Caroline, what
Yes.
if there is a justified means to the end of torturing you for being gay in eternity? Forever. What if?
Man, that would suck.
Wouldn't you at least try to change?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
So
And why? And it might be because I don't think it's real. Like, I don't think.
You don't think that's real.
Right.
Because it's directly inconvenient to you.
I think it's one of those things. It hasn't hit me yet.
What do you mean it hasn't hit you?
Like say if I went to hell because I was gay, that wouldn't hit me till I'm probably there, and then I'm like, oh shit.
What?
Like, does that make sense? Is that what you were asking?
So no. So more like, so when faced with this problem that directly influences you and how you view yourself and how you view God and your religion and other people, you'll have none of it. Doesn't apply to you.
Okay.
Not real. But this story about God massacring these people because of who knows what they did wrong in his mind.
Maybe they were gay.
Maybe. Actually, some of them were.
Probably.
Maybe there's a justified means to that. That's okay, because maybe there's something that you don't know about somewhere in the future that makes that okay. But this gay thing doesn't apply because it's you.
Yeah.
Do you see the problem there?
Oh,
do you see the confirmation bias a little bit, maybe?
Oh, sure. I'm sure I'm contradicting myself completely because.
Well, it's not just that. It's like I don't know if you're seeing that
different perspective.
It's just, I mean, maybe different perspective, but it's more like, do you see that it has this belief of yours seems like it has more to do with what makes you feel good than whether it's. Do you care that it's true? If this is true? If this, like, everything that we've been talking about. So God, Jesus, the Bible.
So, like, at the end of the day, I die, and it turns out there's just no God, and I just die. Would I be upset by it?
No. Do you care if it's true right now? That all of this is actually true? I don't think so. You don't care if it's true?
I don't think I would. I'm a terrible
Caroline.
person. I know. It's such a weird thing. Like, why do I worship this person to where if I found out
you don't even care if it's true?
Yeah.
So why do you do this?
Can't help it.
Because it makes you feel good?
Can't explain it. I don't know if it makes me feel good. It's like I just can't stop.
Do you think it's fair for me to say that or unfair for me to say that?
No, I think it's totally fair.
Honestly?
Yeah.
You can say that's unfair. That's bullshit.
No. Like, I think it's fair to say that because it doesn't make sense. Like, and again, I think it's just a me thing.
Right. Okay. That's fine. This is all you. This is you. That's fine. Screw the other Christians listening to this.
Right.
Oh, what is she saying? Shut up. You shut up. If you don't want to listen to this, you can turn it off. Caroline, continue.
Right. No, I think you can totally call that because it makes sense to why, like, if I don't care if it's not true, then why in the hell am I going to put so much effort in believing this?
Exactly.
And it's for that thing that I can't explain, and I don't know if it's because that's what it means to believe, that you can't change it, or if it's because I grew up in this and it's all I know, and I can't change it because of that.
Okay. That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
it's honest, at least.
It is definitely. This is definitely probably the most honest I've ever heard someone who self-identifies as a Christian talk about this stuff. So I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
There's a group out there somewhere saying, God, I hate her.
Well, they can shut up because they can come on my show and tell their story some other time. This is your time right now. Yeah, it doesn't sound like you really believe this stuff. It sounds like it makes you feel good when you want to feel good, and that's it.
Okay.
But I'm not saying like you should be an atheist now. I'm just saying
right. And I won't.
From exploring, your thoughts a little bit into this and how you and also, conversations we've had before.
Yeah.
Which is also kind of filtering into this.
Of
so
course,
maybe some people are missing a little bit of the conversation, being like, "Whoa, where'd you get that?"
Right.
Conclusion.
I feel like we're saying a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and that's fine. But I just wanted to know, kind of why this is important to you, and I think that's important.
Yeah. Why
for you to know more than for me to know. So I could be totally wrong, and you could figure it out later and be like, I don't just believe this because it makes me feel good. This is why I believe it.
Right. No, that's a very decent question, because whenever I have kids, like, I want them to go to church, and why would I want that?
Yeah.
And I feel like it is that's the way I'm thinking about it. Like, if I have kids, why do I want to send them to church? Why do I want them to be a part of a camp?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it has to do with the experience that I had in the environment that I was in, and I felt like it was a safe environment. It was a happy environment. And sure, there was tribulations and there was things about it that was hard. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But I think it's just there's that safetiness and there's that innocence.
Do you think you could get that from somewhere else other than church?
It's interesting because I was sheltered as a kid, which I'm sure plays a big part in this, about how I view the world. Possibly, but I don't know.
If you were to find a place that gave you all those things without the Bible, would you want that?
To be honest, I want to say no. My gut feeling says no. and I don't have a good reason why.
Yeah, I mean, you sound pretty attached.
Yeah,
you sound
I do.
pretty
Totally
attached to the Bible and this belief, which is fine.
And I don't know if I'm okay with it, to be honest.
Well, you can be okay with it.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't about converting or deconverting.
No,
this is just about getting to the reason why. But
sure. I mean, I think like what I'm talking about tonight are feelings that people feel as Christians.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure you're not the only one.
Oh,
I'm
no.
sure there are plenty of Christians who might listen to this who are like, oh, I feel that way all the time.
No, I definitely know there's people who feel like this, and they probably feel really shitty about themselves because they're like, well, if I feel this way, then I'm not a Christian, and that really bothers me because I want to be a Christian. And then you're like, well, why? And then, you have this internal monologue, which I've had several conversations with myself about, I'm sure. And I think this is probably the real honest answer as far as probably what most Christians go through, but they don't want other people to know because then they feel like, I am a Christian, I have this space, like I have to be what a Christian quote unquote is. They just don't want to admit anything that's wrong or admit that they have doubt. Yes. And I think
plenty of Christians, here's the thing, I think that doubt can be a really great tool for Christians because I think when they start to question it, that's when they really start to change and their mind starts to grow. So I actually think that doubt can make you a better Christian because then you're more equipped to have your own reasons for believing in the things. Way of
looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it gives you your own reasons to believe in something rather than because that's what your pastor told you.
Yeah.
When you were 3 or 10 or whatever. But
yeah, no, good point. I like that. That's a neat way to look because if you doubt it, you're gonna
look for the answers.
Yeah, and then either convince yourself or not.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Cool. Self-discovering.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the people who doubt and either end up becoming even more immersed in Christianity or become atheists.
Yeah.
Both of them, I think, are doing a great job.
Yeah.
But it's the ones who are stuck there, either as atheists or as Christians or as agnostics even. Just totally complacent. I don't know, and it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Like, don't you want to grow up a little bit? Don't you want to,
know why?
Don't you want to know? Yeah, don't you want to know why most geologists and paleontologists will tell you, no, these things didn't really happen? Don't you? Why do they say that? Is there a giant conspiracy in the scientific world? Some people think so.
Sure.
Don't you want to know these things?
I would.
Yeah, me too.
I would
I want to know if the wool's being pulled over my eyes, right? I want to know if what this book says is true.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I totally get in that. I mean, that's why I like looking in between the lines. And,
for sure. That's great.
Self-discovering for myself and talking to people who will challenge me on those questions. I mean, like you are wonderful because you challenge me on a lot of this stuff. So it's like, wow, you have to do a lot of self-discovering. And there's a lot of things that I don't have answers for that I'm like, man, just gut feelings and I can't explain it. And that's as far as I can go.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and sometimes that's just the answer I need, and that's it.
Yeah. But what I've been starting to tell myself lately and to remind myself to do is just to live in reality as much as possible because I find that even though there are terrible, terrifying things that happen in real life, reality as a whole is less depressing and less anxiety ridden than what's going on in my head.
Okay.
So when I look at these things, I want to know if they're true because I want to live in reality.
All right.
And so if my soul depends on this, if my soul depends on who I have sex with or whether I like God or not, whether I like this God of the Bible or whether I believe that Jesus Christ was a real man who really died and really came back to life.
Right.
If my soul hinges on that, and if I can still feel pain even though my body's gone, I need to know that because that will change everything.
Flip the question,
Go ahead.
if you knew being gay meant that you're going to hell, would you change yourself? Like if you 100%
absolutely 100% no. I would say
would
screw you. I would rather be in hell because some things are not worth paradise to me. So, no, I'm not going to... And that's a choice that I made before I became an atheist.
Right.
That I'm not going to change who I am for you.
Okay.
Because I don't think this God in particular deserves that from me.
Okay.
So no, I wouldn't. If this God's real, no, I would absolutely be like,
Yeah.
I don't actually want to be with you.
Okay.
So I will
That
choose
makes
hell.
sense. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe I would regret it because I would be in pain in the moment somehow, even though I don't have any pain receptors or neurons. I feel pain, but I would think I would be like, well, I thought it through and these were my reasons. So yeah.
Totally. I mean, same thing for me. Like, gosh, especially since I believe, and I'm like, I could go to hell and stuff like that. Why would I not change? And I'm like, because I don't actually agree that what I'm doing is bad.
Yeah. That's where I started too. I was like, I don't agree with God. I don't. If that's really what he thinks, I disagree.
Right.
And then for me, it all fell apart from there. But
it's like I'm not agreeing with God. I'm agreeing how somebody wrote it.
Okay.
So maybe that changes.
What if somebody miswrote Jesus coming back from the dead? Does that change anything?
Miswrote that he came back. So
if he didn't really, but someone just put that in there to sound better, does that make a difference to you?
A lot of people.
Yeah.
Does that make me nervous?
No, not nervous. Does it make a difference?
Well, sure, because then this promise that everyone's salvations were saved wasn't true. Like, it didn't.
Why not
fulfill it? Because that's the whole.
That's the whole point.
That's the whole point.
Is the sacrifice.
Yeah.
Right.
And if somebody just wrote that in there, like somebody just snuck it on in, then yeah.
Well, not snuck it. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe not necessarily someone just snuck it in, but maybe they all collectively agreed. Yeah, this is what happened. Let's write this down so that people think this is what happened.
Right. Well, I mean,
if that's the case, I'm not saying it is.
But saying if that was the case, then
does that make a difference to you? Does that mean that God's not real to you? If that didn't happen, okay.
I would still consider God to be real, but if you're saying if they wrote that Jesus never came back, then to me it would be, well, the promise wasn't fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever that means, I guess that just means we all go to hell.
Well, I mean, isn't
that what it was? It was like,
I don't know.
If Jesus came and he sacrificed and whatnot, does that mean none of us go or all of us go? Like, that's how I saw it. It's like I kind of saw that if he sacrificed himself, then that meant either we had a choice to go to heaven or we all going to heaven. That was definitely an iffy thing, and I would have to kind of read it and look into it, because I think that makes a difference. I think that matters.
So how do you tell the difference between something that you think someone just misinterpreted or miswrote or something that definitely totally happened?
Right. How do I know?
How do you know?
I don't, and that's why I question the Bible all the time.
Okay. So it's possible all of it could be made up.
Yeah.
Is that a possibility to you?
To me, yes.
Okay. But it's also possible that all of it's true.
It could all of it could be true, which I already don't believe.
Okay.
And like, as far as I'm concerned, there's holes in it. It could have been interpreted correctly for that time, but that's not going to be applicable for 2018. Maybe in 300 BC,
sure.
Yeah, that totally made sense. But why? How does that transfer over? I mean, that's great if it does.
Right.
I just have a hard time wrapping my mind around it.
Yeah. So why? So if all these people if this was written by people,
yeah,
which obviously was written by people literally, but if there wasn't a little God talking in their ear telling them what to write,
yeah,
what does that mean for the existence of God, of this God in particular?
I think on a personal level, I think that's why I keep looking into it.
Okay.
I think that's why I enjoy looking at different perspectives. I enjoy going to different churches and hearing different people's ideas, because I don't think the Bible is true. Or I guess
same.
I don't know if true. I don't know if the Bible is accurate. Like, true, but not accurate fully. Maybe that's contradicting itself. I don't know.
I think so.
If you can get that.
Depends on, I think, I know what you mean. I know that you mean some things you think are true in it, some things you don't think are true. But the problem is, I'm afraid that how you're distinguishing that is
contradicting
what
itself.
makes me feel good is what's true. What doesn't make me feel good is not true. And that's a terrible way to decipher what is true.
I guess example, I believe he made Adam and Eve, but I think it's inaccurate to say that there weren't more people.
Okay.
At that's how I'm interpreting it.
Because you know better. Because you know there weren't just two people on the earth at one time.
Yeah, you read later on
before everything else
that he goes to another village, and so like I want to know where that's at, and I won't ever get that answer. I don't know who or how I would ever get that answer.
Well, you also believe in evolution. You believe evolution is true.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So there's no way that there could have been two people on the earth, just them.
Right.
At one time.
I don't think so. I think
as like you and I are.
Uh-huh.
We weren't like this.
Right. Yeah. Oh
millions
no!
of
Like
years ago.
how beautiful we are? No way. Like Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
As
disgusting.
far as I'm concerned, they were probably disgusting people, and yeah, it's like I know a lot of people would. I think I would have a conversation with somebody who's like, "Why didn't Eve know better?" And I'm thinking she didn't know what a fig leaf was between something else. Like they didn't have, and maybe they did. I don't know. And as far as I'm concerned, they're similar to cave people, and I wouldn't consider them to be smart. Not as smart as we are. Could be wrong. I've never met a cave person. But I do. I believe that we give Adam and Eve or people in biblical times too much credit because we are thinking with our minds, not theirs.
Right. Because we know more than they did. So we actually know how to explain. Or we know... I wouldn't say we know how to explain the origin of life. We know how to trace it back, at least, as far as we can go for now.
And so, like, I can see how...
And they didn't know.
Yeah. Like,
so they
I can see how Eve...
wrote these things down.
Could listen to a talking snake. Because I feel like if you're a kid, you believe things that adults wouldn't. Maybe just a childish mind. And so, like, I can totally... Because to me, if I heard a talking snake, I'd be like,
something would be wrong because
wrong.
Snakes do not have the capacity to talk.
Right. And
like,
so
in their bodies, in their mouths. They cannot talk.
And if there was one that was doing it, I would think something's weird.
Yeah.
But I can see why Eve would. Because I would think their mind isn't as developed. Maybe they don't know that snakes can't talk. As far as...
Were they perfect?
No.
They weren't perfect?
I guess what's your definition of perfect? Like perfect.
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 So, like, they could not make a mistake.
No, obviously.
They weren't?
Correct.
So, then what was
they made
the
a mistake.
point? So, right. Exactly. So, what was this whole fall thing that we were supposedly so good and then all of a sudden we were ruined? But if we weren't ruined in the first place, what's the problem?
Maybe it was a way for... trying to think. And that's a dead air. You have to cut that out whenever you...
No, I
Sorry,
love...
Jaren.
No, Jaren, do not touch that.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's true. Hesitation,
important.
Right?
No, not hesitation.
Not hesitation, thinking.
Important pauses so that everybody knows it's okay to
question,
think.
Like, why...
So if
why make
they
them
were
perfect?
if they were not perfect in the first place, what was the problem? Where was the fall if they were already quote unquote ruined?
Right. So the fall was that they ate at the wrong tree.
Sure, but why would that be a problem if they could have made any other mistake?
That was just the rule that God gave. He said you can eat from any tree, but not from the tree. I think it was like good and life.
Right, but what I'm saying is when they did, well, of course they would have because they weren't perfect. So why is he getting mad at them and destroying their lives and our lives for something that he put in us?
I don't have an answer for it.
Okay. Have you ever thought about that? Part of it, because some people will say no, they were perfect.
Yeah,
Adam and Eve were perfect, and that was why it was such a big deal when they disobeyed God.
Right, but to me, if they were perfect,
they couldn't have made that mistake.
They couldn't have made,
exactly.
Now does perfect mean? Because when I initially think of perfect, I think like there's perfect physical sense, and then I guess behavior sense, and. I mean, they're just
like
fruit.
they couldn't have disobeyed God because that would be a mistake, right?
Right.
To disobey God is a mistake.
Is not being perfect.
Right.
So did he make them perfect? I don't know where it says. I feel like somewhere, I don't know where it is. he gives us a choice.
Mm-hmm.
So then
gives us free will, so that we don't automatically pick him.
So does that
right?
mean? Sure, but I can see that. I mean, it's like you don't want someone to be your friend out of obligations. You want them to be your friend because they chose
But
to,
when they choose not to be your friend,
Yeah.
and then you kill their family,
oh god,
it's kind of like, did you really give me a choice then? Was that really a choice? If I hold a gun to your head,
yeah,
and say, it's fine if you don't do what I say, but if you don't, I am gonna blow your head off.
yeah.
But it's up to you.
Oh sure, I think you give him a choice. They just made the wrong one, I guess.
Oh wow, yeah, quite a choice that one.
Right, that's a bummer. Yeah, so that's interesting. If he gave people free will, then did he really make them perfect? Maybe just capable of being perfect. I don't know. That's an interesting question.
That would be cool, because it'd been like, well, that means that we are capable of being perfect,
Yeah.
and then
Don't
killing
eat any
ourselves
fruit
over
ever.
being perfect would be worth it, because there would be an attainable perfection. But then we're also told, well, you can't be perfect because God is perfect, and you're not supposed to be like God.
Mm-hmm.
Which was the problem in the first place, right? Because the knowledge of the tree of good and evil, they would have become like God, and God didn't want that.
But then they ate it anyways, and then they didn't become like God. Or maybe they did. Oh, what if, like, becoming God does mean you do, like, asshole things?
Well, we're already there, I would say.
So then
We've already killed a bunch of people. Metaphor, God is actually us.
Bam.
The Bible was predicting the future,
Hey.
not the past. Wow. Spectacular.
Yeah, there we go. That's what we get into.
Well, I should probably let you go. Just one more question.
Yeah, hit me up. I can't believe it's over.
I know, yeah, we kind of just cut it short a little bit, but we are running short of time.
We started early, didn't we?
We started a little late, actually, about 15 minutes
late.
late.
What time does it start?
Usually 8.
Oh,
8 around. Sometimes I start around 7:30.
Oh.
Just to get it over.
Okay.
Because sometimes I don't know how long it'll run. But anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Do you have any pushes or challenges or questions for me as an atheist?
I don't.
None at all? You don't even want to think about it?
I think, one, I've heard a lot of questions you've answered and you've asked. But then I also feel like I'm not here to change your mind. And I don't...
That's okay. You can still ask. Like, if you just want to know.
Yeah. I don't right now. And it might just be because I've been around you. So any question I've had, it's been answered or something. I don't know.
Okay.
I personally don't. I don't have any questions. I might ask you later if I
I was thinking, like, if it comes up, feel free.
And I'm like,
feel free to ask me. Maybe I'll blog about it to let other people know.
Totally.
Caroline asked me this, and this was my response.
On top of my head, I don't have any stories. I don't have any questions because I know somebody have asked you, like, or maybe it's a common question for atheists, like, do you not feel love? Like, I don't believe that. Like, I was like, yeah, of course they feel love.
Right.
You know, I don't think God did something to hurt you, and that's why you don't believe in them, and you're just doing this out of, you know, like,
revenge, anger.
I don't believe in that. Like, I feel like you have a very good reason for how you believe or don't believe, and, you know, maybe that's selfish of me to not be concerned about your well-being as far as, like, if this is real, like, I gotta save ya.
Depends on who you ask.
And I
think some people do feel that way.
Yeah, probably.
And are legitimately concerned.
But I don't think I'd be the right person to convert you, so I wouldn't.
Well, that's okay. You know, you don't have to ask me to be like. I just
right, but
you know,
I mean,
you don't have to try to. You don't have to try to
feel
stump me, or just like you know.
No,
nothing.
I don't have any questions. I think it's great that you challenge people and you give different ideas because I think people are afraid of atheists, and I don't know if I've come across one or not. I mean, it's certainly new for me, and I've grown a lot. I think if you would have asked me if I was like 18, 19, maybe even 20, I would have thought differently. Totally
sure.
Differently.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure that I'll be in a completely different place when I'm 25. Like, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
No, I have changed completely. So I think if you would have asked me, you know, 5 years ago, I would have been a lot more crude. I probably would have been a lot closed-minded. I would have been afraid to admit any doubts, and I would have had like locked down, like written scripture, like do anything to prove myself and not make God look bad at all. and think nothing less of them. And that's changed since 5 years. So that's just a personal growth I've had.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no questions.
Well,
at this time.
It's okay. That is okay. Like I said, we talk every day. So
Yeah.
if a question does come up, I'm sure it'll come up naturally. Okay.
Man, I wish we could hear or see people's comments on this.
Come
after me with pitchforks.
No, I don't think they will. I don't think they ever will. If nobody came after us after the atheist questions, I was really expecting a certain person to be to come after me, the one who asked, the question. But they didn't, and I'm guessing because they didn't really listen, because they don't really want to know the answer to that question.
Oh yeah.
I hope I'm wrong.
I think there's lots of things that I said tonight people do not want to hear.
That's fine. And good.
Yeah.
I like hearing and saying things that other people don't want me to hear and say. And sometimes I like hearing things that I don't want to hear because it's, I don't know, refreshing. But I also don't like it. I don't know. It's a weird dichotomy.
Growth. It is a weird thing.
It is. You're right. But
that's why we're roommates.
Yeah, it is why we're roommates. Thank you so much for coming on with me tonight and talking to me about this stuff. Thank you for being as open and honest as you were. That made this conversation a whole lot easier and smoother, and I really enjoyed myself. Did you enjoy yourself tonight?
I did.
Okay, good.
It was good.
I hope you come back. I'm sure that you will.
Yeah. Maybe something less lighthearted.
Less lighthearted?
Not less light.
More lighthearted?
More lighthearted,
more chill?
More like a movie. Something something that's not religious.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not that I don't like talking about this, but
we can talk about other things, of course. I occasionally like to talk about other things too.
Yes, occasionally.
Occasionally. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the talk as much as Caroline and I did. This is KFHS Radio, and I'm your host Carson Lopez on Coalition M. Have a great night, everybody.